I am Anil Kumar. Welcome to my series on quadratic functions. In this video, we will learn a strategy of sketching inverse of a function, writing its domain and range, and getting the equation by just using words, no equations, right? So the question here is, sketch graph of f of x and f inverse. Now, inverse of a quadratic function is not a function most of the time. Therefore, we are not writing x here. So it's an inverse relation. Write equation of f inverse and its domain and range, right? There are 4 examples. The first 2 have no restriction on their domain. C and D are restricted on the domain. So the 4 examples are parabolas opening up, opening down, opening up, opening down, with the restrictions on either side. So you have a complete variety here. So let's take the very first example and understand the concept. So we have f of x equals to 2 times x minus 1 whole square plus 5. Let us first try to sketch this parabola. Parabola will open upwards, right? So here are rough sketches. The parabola will open upwards. Vertex of this parabola will be at 1, 5. So that is your function f of x. Now, as far as the inverse is concerned, the inverse of this function will open towards the right side. It will be a parabola which opens towards the right side. So that will be the inverse of this, and this is definitely not a function. It's a relation. So the vertex coordinates will swap. We'll have 5, 1 here. Correct? And that's how it is going to look like. Now, as far as the domain and range is concerned, domain here is x belongs to real numbers. Range is y belongs to real numbers, where y is greater than equal to 5, right? In this case, the domain and range will swap, correct? It's an inverse function. So in this case, as you see, the range is y belongs to real numbers, no restrictions, but on the domain, x belongs to real numbers, where x is greater than equal to 5, correct? Makes sense on the right side of this 5. Is that okay? So you can get domain and range of your function and the inverse, right? So we have your function here, and this is all about inverse. Now, let us consider the equation of our inverse function. To get the equation, we will work on reverse operation. As far as the function is concerned, let us list the operations in order. If I feed a number x, what do you do first? First is you take away 1, so first operation is take away 1, correct? And after that, what do? You square it, then you square. And then you times 2, multiply by 2. And then you add 5, right? So these are the operations which you perform on the function. Now, if I'm working on the inverse of this function, I have to reverse these operations, right? So we'll begin with this. So what we get here is x reverse of plus 5 is minus 5, correct? So we have taken care of first thing. So plus changes to minus, correct? Now, this is multiplication. So what will happen to multiplication? It becomes division, right? So then we'll divide by 2, right? So that is our second operation. Multiplication becomes reversed division by 2, right? So that is division by 2. The first one was take away 5. And now we have square root. Square means square root, right? So the reverse of this will be what? Square root. Whenever you do square root, you have to write plus and minus sign, correct? So we'll do square root of all this. And we'll write plus and minus, correct? And then finally, we have this minus 1, right? So this minus 1 will become what? Plus 1, correct? So we'll write this as plus 1. Do you see that? So we got the equation for the inverse of the given function, correct? So let's rewrite this all together. So we have this inverse as equals to plus minus square root of x minus 5 over 2 plus 1, right? And here is your domain and range. You can see clearly that x has to be greater than equal to 5, right? Otherwise, this thing will become imaginary, right? So do you see how easy it is? Let's look back. So what we did was, first thing, we have to take away 5, divide by 2, square root. Whenever you do square root, you have to do plus and minus and then add 1. Do you see the steps? Using words in the reverse order, reverse operation, we get straight away the equation of our inverse. Do you see that? We'll do it for other 3 examples, and by the end, you will be a master on this technique. So now let's take the second example. Now in this example, we have negative here, means the parabola is going to open downwards, right? So as far as the function is concerned, the parabola now opens downwards. This is because we have this negative coefficient, and the vertex will be at minus 2, 3. Correct? So domain, we know, is all real numbers. As far as range is concerned, it is restricted. Y belongs to real numbers. However, y should be less than equal to 3. Correct? Since it opens downwards. Now, whenever the parabola opens downwards, its inverse will be kind of opening left. Do you see that? It will be opening left. That is how it is. So here we have inverse. Perfect. For the inverse, things will swap. So we have a domain which is now restricted. We say x belongs to real numbers, but x is less than equal to 3, right? That means this point, which we are looking at, is now 3 minus 2. As far as the range is concerned, y value for this, it has no restriction. So y belongs to real numbers. So first part is easy. So whenever parabola opens down, inverse opens on the left side. If parabola is opening upwards, inverse will open on the right side. Okay. Now let's look into the reverse operation. Can you help me write down? Let's straight away write down the reverse operation. Inverse is not a function, as you can see, so I'm not writing x here. So what is happening here? First thing you do is you take away 2, you add 2, square it, multiply by minus, and the last thing is plus 3. Reverse, you will do this last thing first, right? Last first. So we'll do x minus 3, and then you divide by minus 1, then you do square root. Whenever you do square root, you write plus and minus, and then you take away 2. So that becomes the inverse of this function straight. Correct? Clearly, you can see that this domain and range works fairly well. X has to be, as we can see, since this is negative, x has to be less than equal to 3. This is negative, right? So I could rewrite this as plus minus square root of, taking care of this unit, we have minus of, taking minus common, x plus 3, correct? Minus 2. So we've taken this minus outside, so we get, when you open this bracket, it becomes plus 3, correct? So now you understand that the value of x should be less than equal to 3. Only then this value will be positive, correct? So that is how you should do it. Now let's take the next example. So I hope this concept, when the domain has no restriction, is absolutely clear, okay? Here is part C, where the function is 0.5x minus 2 whole square plus 4, and we are talking about x which is greater than equal to 2, right? So this is a parabola which actually opens upwards. So let me just sketch a parabola opening upward first. Then from the vertex, it is x greater than equal to 2. That means we are talking about this part of this parabola. Does make sense to you? Correct? The vertex here is 2, 4. As you can see, domain has no restriction. Range is y belongs to real numbers. Sorry, domain has restrictions given here. X is greater than equal to 2, sorry, because we have restricted the domain right there. And y is also restricted. Y belongs to real numbers where y is greater than equal to 4. Now if I'm doing the reverse of this, they will swap. So as far as inverse is concerned, we'll have domain which will now be x greater than equal to 4, and the range will be y belongs to real number, but y will be greater than equal to 2. Since this is a parabola which opens upwards, the inverse will open towards the right side. Now we are interested only in the half which opens, which is on the right side, and therefore the portion which opens upward is our solution. So in this case, clearly, we have inverse whose vertex will now be at 4, 2, and we are interested in the portion which opens upwards. Correct? Now, we know this part. Let us try to write down the equation itself. Equation of the inverse. F inverse, this is going to be a function, so let me write F inverse of x. First thing you do is take away 4, right? So we have x minus 4. Then you divide by 0.5, which is as good as multiplying by 2, right? But anyway, I'll write this 0.5 here. And then you do square root. Now, since we are only interested in values of x which are greater than 2, we'll take a positive sign. Does it make sense? Only the positive sign. See this off. And now we'll add 2. That becomes our inverse function, and these are its restrictions. Does make sense, right? So I hope the concept is clear. When the domain is restricted, in that case, inverse is a function. Since now, if I draw a horizontal line, it only cuts at one point, not two. So the horizontal line test passes. And therefore here, for the inverse, the vertical line test passes, it becomes a function. Perfect? The last example for you is f of x equals to minus 2, x minus 3 whole square, where x is less than equal to 3. I'd like you to pause the video and answer it yourself. Correct? So this is a parabola, as you can see, which opens downwards. The vertex of this parabola is at 3, right? And y value is 0. And we are interested in the portion which is less than 3. That means this portion. For such a parabola, the inverse will be opening towards the left side. And since we are interested in less than value, we are actually having the inverse, which will be the lower half. Do you see that part? And this point here will be at 0, 3. So that will be the inverse function. Got it? So as far as the function is concerned, we have x belongs to real numbers where we are given that x is less than or equal to 3. That's the domain. And as far as y is concerned, the range, it is less than or equal to 0 since it opens downwards. Here, the domain will be x belongs to real numbers where x will be less than or equal to 0, and the range y belongs to real numbers where y will be less than or equal to 3, as you can see here. Correct? Now let's write down the equation. I'd like you to pause the video and write this equation yourselves. Here is the equation. F inverse x, since it is a function, right? So nothing is being subtracted or added. So on x, we are actually dividing by -2, right? And then we do square root. Now when you do square root, since it is less than 3, we'll take only the negative sign. Got it? We'll take only the negative sign. And then we're going to add 3. So that ensures that we're considering the range less than or equal to 3. And this ensures that we have to have x value less than 0. Then negative will make it positive. Does this make sense to you? So you see now, with the help of this concept, you can easily graph inverse of a function. You can write down its domain and range and do many questions within a minute. So in a multiple choice test paper, this strategy really helps. So I hope you find it interesting and useful. Feel free to write your comment, share your views, and if you like and subscribe to my videos, that'd be great. Thanks for your time and all the best.